doing it different today. Remote office work. Let's get into it. so, Rhonda, we were just chatting before, about getting out of the home. Hey, like how important.
Super,
So,
super important. I mean,
yeah,
when I connected with you, it was interesting that you had said that, hey, nice background, and I wish I could tell you that, hey, this is my home office. Look at this beautiful sprawling office that I have right in my home. But no, I'm in a
yeah,
co-working space, and frankly, I've really come to enjoy this. I don't know if I can go out about my business. I'm a fractional COO, you know that.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I serve clients down in south of the border, and that means that for me, I have to make a choice. Do I work from home full time, or do I split my time up? And there was a moment a couple times, a couple weeks ago, where I would park my butt in a Starbucks, and that
Yeah.
was very liberating, but
Yes.
also very distracting. So yeah, I'm really loving this co-working space. It gives me just the perfect balance and hybrid that I need, even though I'm quite literally 5 minutes down the road.
Isn't it funny though? Like we need that change of space though. Like I know a lot of us, like we were chatting about my historical work experience, just to mention, like I've kind of always worked from home. So it wasn't like a huge surprise, but even through, but we traveled a lot with that job. We were very social. So not only do you work alone, but you had all these other interactive things that you were doing often. And so you kind of got to like scratch that itch, so to say, or be in like different environments. But I think that space is very important to get out, whether it be 5 minutes away or 50 minutes away. Sometimes the
Agreed.
drive time's nice too.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So
and the
yeah.
drive time is my podcasting time or my
Okay.
audible time, right? And so,
Yeah.
the last 15 years I got so used to reporting into an office, and I would have 20, 30 minutes to commute to the office, which I appreciated because
Yeah.
it eases me into my day and I learn something. Um, but since I made a career move, I've gotten rid of that. And
Yeah.
it's been such an eye opener for me because all this time I thought, great, I can work from home, have full flexibility. Whew, 3 weeks ago, the week ended, and
Yeah.
I said to my wife, this is not a healthy thing for me to do. And
Right.
and I'm not a very extroverted guy. I can communicate with people. I love communicating with you. I love being here right now. But the point I'm trying to
Yeah.
make is I don't feel like I need to speak to somebody to feel like I've gotten my energy balance right. I just need to be in a place of energy. And so this is
Yeah.
exactly what I need right now.
I appreciate you sharing that too. It's I think a lot of people experience that or are experiencing that, whether maybe they want to admit it or not, because I think some people find, the luxury of working from home is so great. I can go throw in laundry, guilty as charged. But been doing it for a number of years where you have that balance. I always found even from working from home though, it was I would still kind of follow the parameters of a 9 to 5. It wasn't like I was, out doing all those other things. Some of the reps I worked with, had more confidence to do that, maybe more years in the business and stuff. I always felt I kind of needed to be around, even on Fridays. The odd time later on in the career, I got a little bit more comfy with understanding that, if you work one night a little later, you can kind of take some time the next day to do something else. But I was kind of been like rigid on myself on that one. But then it's tough and you get kind of like distracted if you're not used to it, right? And then we were talking about like I totally get prepped for the day. I mean, obviously today I'm not suited up or anything on thing, but going into events, you're still dressing formal or, at very least wearing pants. Like that whole craze during COVID where people were like rocking shorts and underwear. I'm just like, what are you doing? Like this is crazy to me. Like I still need to get dressed up and nothing has changed in, my routine that way. It's still been get up. The routine is there. But yeah, being around people is important for sure.
Fun fact. Many years ago, I used to be a part-time sports anchor for a
Yeah.
local TV company and or broadcasting company. And when
Yeah.
I was at the anchor desk, it would be suit and tie up top, cargo shorts at the bottom.
No way.
And I'm not the only one. That was a thing.
Oh my gosh. You know what I
It was
watched? It
fun.
was like a month ago. It was Anchorman. I was sick. I had an extreme man cold and I was watching them and how like they do like the whole production. It's obviously like the lighter side of that industry and making a bit of a goof about some stuff, but that's super funny. I did not know this. So if the camera would have scanned below the desk kind of thing, I would have
Yes,
cargo shorts on. Oh my
absolutely.
gosh.
Yeah, especially in the summer, it's the way to do it.
Yeah, I guess
You
so.
just put on
Heat.
your Superman cape, basically. A couple minutes before you're live on television.
Oh my gosh. How long did you do that for?
Very, very. very, very short. I would maybe that what oh well, I spent I think 2 years at the CBC as a news reporter, and my time at CTV was only a few months. Put it this
Yeah.
way, I was a broke college student. I had just graduated and I landed this gig. Somebody had took a chance on me and I took a part-time gig as a sports anchor. And of course, I mean, I'm thinking,
Yeah.
I'm fresh out of college. What I mean, this makes me really uncomfortable, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
Yeah.
But it was a part-time gig and I appreciated it because I learned so much. But of course, when the next employer called me with a full-time opportunity as a broke college kid, I'm thinking, I'm in. I
Right.
probably shouldn't be saying this because, there's some people who probably thinking, Randall, I invested in you and you ditched me a couple months into your employment. So maybe I'm saying too much, but that is honestly what happened.
No, I well, okay. I've been on a few sides of the desk. I did executive recruitment for a bit with hiring folks and recruiting. It happens all the time. People get jobs, have opportunities. It's like the equivalent of dating for a job in many cases if you are actively looking or if you're getting calls from recruiters, if you're sought after in your industry. People swap jobs after getting because the job that they actually wanted in some cases, was still lingering or in the queue, but they got to go pay bills and this was a good option for them. They get that call back and it's like, I get it. You're kind of annoyed as the person orchestrating the whole setup of that, arrangement, but
Yeah,
it's hard to say like, well, do it, do what you really want to do at the end of the day, if that's the job
that's
that you really
exactly
wanted.
it.
So sometimes it's
Ult-
timing.
Ultimately, there's an economic factor to manage.
Yeah, and it's always a risk, right? I mean, the training on the front end of a lot of those roles is where the companies really feel it the most, but it's a necessary part, and they got to take the risk. It's one of those trust things in companies, like they're investing in you, you're investing in them. It's like this weird like pendulum, and then you're not even probably on benefits for the first 90 days or something out of like a thing that they have built in. So then you're not totally dialed in with them, and then they really want
That's
you
right.
there and then you leave and then it's like, oh well, why did they leave? Well, you didn't give me that, all these other things that go on, and it's always a balancing act. And I've always thought about this, and it's nice to be with companies for a long period of time. I think it's kind of changed though a lot, through a lot of more in any industries. I had a very specific experience in ag, as many folks that know me well know the ag industry. They went through a lot of shifts and still are. But other industries, a lot of them have, amalgamated, come together, little M&A action.
Hmm.
So a lot of people have lost jobs and had to switch in the last few years, which was not as common years ago. I mean, look at my parents; they were with their roles for 30 plus years, 37 or something. My
Right.
dad.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's a
How
shift.
different, how different it is nowadays.
Yeah, yeah. And so, actually, let's talk about a little bit of the journey. So we go jump on TV screens,
Yeah.
and then for a bit, which is super cool that you have that experience. What was one of the highlights of doing there, as limited as it was for you?
Certainly the learning, because
Yeah,
I put myself in a position where I was infinitely uncomfortable. So there's going to be learning there. But in my role as a television news reporter, or just as a news reporter, think about all the stories you get exposed to. So every single
yeah,
day was different. But I would say, Stephen, there's good and bad to that. I can tell you that
right,
my worst, I always refer to or remember my worst days because they were so life changing, they're very transformative. I was in my early to mid 20s. And
yeah,
so it actually shaped the person I was. And here I was trotting along, trying to build myself in this career, thinking that I was destined to be on camera. Because in my teenage years, I thought I associated success to being on camera. How wrong I was, right? But as I continued on with this career, I recognized that there are going to be down days being such as
yeah,
I was assigned a couple of stories. And of course, with news, is if it bleeds, it leads. And so I
right,
still remember the times where I had to knock on doors in the inner city, trying to locate the mother or father or family member of somebody who was just murdered the day before or a
shoot,
couple of days before, right? And so just
yeah,
I do not miss those days of having to interview heartbroken family members, but that was part of the job.
yeah,
And so I just made a decision earlier on in that career, even though it was going, quote unquote, going well, that I had to make a change. And this really
mhm,
wasn't something that gave me satisfaction or a feeling of positive reward. And so, even though I'm very thankful for that experience because I did learn a lot and I was able to transfer that into my next career journey, um,
Yeah,
it was a life lesson.
that definitely would be. I don't know if I do so well with that. I have a hard time enough going to funerals if I'm even just supporting a friend, a family member. They start telling stories. Good luck. Where's the Kleenex? Meanwhile, you got to go knock on the door and talk to someone that just went through it, and they're still probably
Yeah,
emotionally processing it.
that's
Oof.
right. And just to connect the
Yeah.
dots here, I should have done this is, and so what I transitioned into afterwards is
Yeah.
into a media company
Okay.
locally
Cool.
here in Winnipeg. And the transition, the bridge there for me was my ability to write or write scripts for videos. And so it was a media
Nice.
company that produced a bunch of videos and provided media hosting services. And so that made a nice transition. And at that time, that company was it was an entrepreneurial company. It was just starting out, and I was employee number five. I can't remember if that's actually the truth, but it was really
Right.
in its infancy, and
Yeah.
I loved the shift from focusing on negativity, that is sometimes a lot of times news, to
Yeah.
something very positive, right? And I remember that was a very pivotal moment in my life because that was really my first introduction or exposure to the persona of an entrepreneur. And I saw this entrepreneur
Interesting.
locally who then became a friend and a mentor, still is very much a friend and a supporter and a mentor of mine.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking in my 20s, wow, this one individual exudes so much possibility and optimism and their perspective of the world compared to my peers and colleagues at work. And I love my peers and colleagues, but there's a difference here. And I found that very attracting. And I was really attracted to it. And so I went
Yeah.
whole hog and I just learned from this individual. And here I was being hired into this company. And I was prepped to basically help that company grow. And long story short, we went from 0 million. In fact, because it was immediately after the 2008 recession, we went from less than zero to then scaling that company into
Oh my
multiple
gosh.
millions. And that was honestly the greatest experience I've had in my professional and personal life.
What made that so exciting?
Huh. How much time you have, Stephen?
We can go an extended version. Maybe we'll just have to already call it a 2.0. Because
Yeah.
I'm picking up the vibe from you. The same thing I have experienced. I would say I've been lucky enough to have it a couple times, but one for sure that sticks out where I remember meeting this entire team. It was this company. It was like kind of like Amazon for farming. It's called Farmers Business Now. We're still around today. It's a little bit different. The team's shifted up and stuff, and very high pace. But I remember walking into the first meeting room, the feeling that I had. And they did such a cool job at recruiting. They had these like super unique roles to come and like feel out people, and like we worked. A lot of us got hired through this recruiter out of Toronto. And this guy was finding people 7 years in a career kind of thing, blah, blah, blah. But anyways, walk into this room and it's like everyone's just meeting for the first time. And it felt like I'm not really into Marvels and stuff, but it did feel like an X-Men movie. We got through, we all had to present like our kind of superhero power, like our area of strength, and everyone was very different in their strengths. And for me, that was just such a neat feeling. We grew that substantially as well. We had major success. There was a core 10 of us that started that division in Canada. We were the fastest part of the company, and it was a ride for like 2 years. Kind of lucky to even make it that far. It was pretty fast paced. We had like daily
Well,
reports. We're like competing against each other, but also helping each other. It was pretty savage, but
I
fun.
think
Yeah,
I think that resonates, and I think you're hitting the money on or hitting the nail on its head. It's purpose. It's a
yeah,
drive. It's a reason to get up. And I look back at my career. The best days are when you're jumping out. And
yeah,
it sounds cliche, but we all hear, especially in our earlier transformative years, we all hear what others with wisdom say, and they'll refer to,
yeah.
if it doesn't feel like work, oh, forgive me, I'm totally butchering the
No, no,
sentiment,
I
but I think
know. Yeah. Well, basically along the lines
just
of like, if you love what you do, it won't feel like you're working a day in your
there you
life. Is
go.
that
Yeah,
kind of
I
the
don't know
idea? Yeah,
why
something like that. No, no, no.
exactly.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and I found myself as we were growing this company, and I felt really invested in its growth because I was contributing and I was seeing the payback. And there's a certain feeling you get that, frankly, I was addicted to it. I would jump out of bed Saturday and Sunday
yeah,
morning and say,
yeah.
well, I just want to do this. Here's 2 or 3 things that I want to accomplish today. And my partners, my love interests at the time,
Yeah.
thought I was bat crazy. Because there's a concept called work-life balance, and don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
not crapping on that. And I far believe I much prefer work-life integration. The key
Yeah.
there to answer your question directly is what is the purpose? What is the reason? What's the motivation? And so
Right.
that I would say was what I found most exhilarating.
I think you nailed it there because I think the entire team. I still keep in contact with some of the team. Some of us just growing apart. We're on to different things, or as the story evolved, things changed over time internally in the companies, right? Like, um, but yeah, we were all really dedicated to the mission on that one. It was very obvious we were market disruptors. We all had a very clear goal in mind too. It was super easy to do in a way.
Yeah,
But yeah, we worked from like 7 in the morning to like 7 at night. No questions asked. Like it was just you're on the road early, you go to meet farmers and get this stuff going. And it was didn't seem like work. I remember I was training for triathlons at the time, doing that. So relatively speaking, getting up like earlier than that, hitting the road roughly. And then at night, I was coaching this like AA hockey team. 2019, I guess was the last year. Um, I was with that company and stuff like that. Like a pretty crazy schedule. And I thought I only had that kind of level of energy when I was like 19, 20. And this is
yeah,
later 20s, almost 30, I guess, kind of thing. And turns out you just have to be, motivated and really into the mission to have that energy again. And I was just talking with the gentleman, sorry, oversharing here on my own thing. I was talking with a guy yesterday about some other stuff we got going on in business right now. And he told me some changes that they've had go on in their company. He said to me, Steve, I haven't worked this hard since I was in my 30s. And he's close to retirement. I think I don't want to miss, he'll know if he's listening to this one. I think he's around 60. Could be wrong. Maybe he's like high 50s, but closer to there. And he's just telling me this, but he's like, I'm having the most fun. I love what I'm doing. He was telling me all the traveling he's doing again. And I'm like, he's like, I kind of got away from this for a bit with the lack of travel. We did all, virtual stuff like this, but he's like, I'm absolutely loving it. And we're growing this thing again. He's like, I probably got a few years left, but it'd probably be the best years of the business. So I was like, that's crazy. Good for you. Cool. He's a
yeah.
high energy guy anyways, but yeah, it's neat
That's
to hear it.
excellent. Yeah, and I would
Yeah.
double down on that because I think the key really is purpose, and are you getting a payback on that purpose, or are you
Yeah.
do you feel like you're spinning a hamster wheel, right? Because age
Yeah.
plays a part of it, right? Because different life stages command different motivations and stressors. But to your point, there's a couple of people I work with who are in their 60s, approaching their 60s, and if you ask them how many more years you got, oh, I can keep going forever, which is great. So I love that zest.
Yeah. Do you think that is, I don't know, kind of like possible for everyone? Maybe they just need to realize it. Because I know some folks, I hear them talk about their days and I feel bad for that energy. I'm just like, is it
I
just one bad day or is it like, do you actually feel this way? You should make a change maybe. It's tough to hear some of those things because
it
or what I
absolutely
do,
is.
you know? Yeah.
Because frankly, I've been on the other side of the fence too, right? So
Yeah.
here I am building my business and enjoying my role, and I
Yeah.
appreciate it. And frankly, this year I haven't taken a day off,
Yeah.
but I don't care. Like it's just part of who I am, part of my life. So I appreciate it. But so to answer your question,
Yeah.
I do think it's possible. Probabilities are different,
Right.
right?
The stats, the support behind that success, it weighs on you.
Yeah,
Well, at the end
I
of the
do
day, it's
think
not other people.
that's right. I think ultimately that decision to lean into a change or a career change, and it's not even just about getting into business for yourself and becoming an entrepreneur. It could be as simple as what is
Yeah.
it? What is my dream job? And getting clear and intentional about going after it. I do recommend it because life is really short, as you know, and
Yeah.
to me, I'd rather just go for doing something that I appreciate and something, as you said earlier, doesn't feel like work.
I don't mean to butcher a quote as we have stumbled through. So you might be carrying me on this one, but I think it was Jim Carrey in terms of like actors, wherever he talks about his dad worked for a company for like it was like a 30-year thing or whatever, and he was unhappy, but he also wanted to be like a comedian, and I guess that's where he got it from. And I hope I'm getting the right person, but nonetheless, does it for a number of years and then gets fired anyways. at the end of it. And then, he's like, if you're going to do something, and this like quote, it's, you might as well be doing something you love, because it could fail anyways on the stuff that you don't like doing. So you might as well fail at doing something you love. And that really stuck. I was already on the journey. So I'm like, okay, well, that's encouraging. I've already left the nest in terms of working for someone else, but I'm glad I'm hearing this now in that sense. And I found that very encouraging. But yeah, it's certainly interesting. Yeah, kind of going on your own. What led you to make that decision on your path? It seems like you've had success working with other companies.
Yeah, you're referring to my entrepreneurial path?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's something I've been reflecting a lot about, certainly this year, because I actually officially just got started in what is it, early to mid January. So I'm 2 months in.
Yeah.
But thank you for your comment. That's very kind, about having prior successes. And the truth is,
Yeah.
entrepreneurial itch has always been there.
Right.
I think I just hadn't leaned into it. That's part of the reason. But the other part is because I was involved in this entrepreneurial company prior to this role, that actually satisfied my itch. And so the number of
Hmm.
entrepreneurs I've met from around the world because of my past role, and not just traveling to different continents, meeting them during business conferences and conventions. It was just local interactions, or Zoom meetings, or Skype meetings, or whatever. I've gotten to meet a lot of people, and I think just the exposure to those entrepreneurs suppressed the itch. However, if I were to answer your question of what was a trigger, or what was a boiling point, there was a boiling point. It was actually my turning 40. I turned 40 in December of last year, so December 2024. And I would say around the time I turned 36, 37, I started becoming more and more aware of my mortality. Sorry to be
Interesting.
all philosophical here, but
No,
this is the
no,
absolute truth.
100%.
I got to a point where I started thinking about my back half of my life, and
Hmm.
realizing that if I'm going to turn 40, I may only have another 4. I'm literally halfway through. Although others would say by the time you turn 36, 37, you're actually midway through your life. And so that evoked a certain fear in my mind. And that
Right.
fear was, what if I find myself on my deathbed regretting the things that I wish I'd done? And that there have been nights, too many nights in the last 5 years, where I would literally stay up and think about this. And it was just the weirdest thing, because around me, around my immediate sphere of influence, friends and family, this is something that I probably couldn't share with them, or they couldn't relate, or at least I thought.
Right.
Um, so I had to process that, and finally, as my 40th birthday rolled around, was right around the corner, I recognized that I had to make this leap, if you will, or this decision, because if I didn't do it now, would I really do it when I was 50 or 55 or 60? So,
Yeah. No, I really appreciate you sharing that. I I'm sure that that's relatable for a lot of folks out there, or they're going through that right now. I think that those moments are really important. Um, to have these changes and life events, because if you're not thinking of yeah, that long play, I think that pain and regret is way too big at the end of the day. Um, yeah, I have a little. Oh, sorry, you want to go ahead?
no, no, I want to hear.
Oh, okay, all right. I'll go. There's a life mantra that I started doing a few years back. I don't even know what year it started. I started doing these mugs as gifts. That's a long story I won't get into today. But um, I made this like banner in my gym, and it says like, "What would 80-year-old you think?" And that's like a little bit of my North Star for decision making, including even starting this podcast. I was like thinking about different things and the importance of sharing stories and the longevity. There's like some like long play things that go into even the little thing that it was only going to be 9 episodes and figure out how to make a podcast. There was all these like subcategories of reasons to maybe grow this thing bigger. That if we had success, what would that what would the path that we would take look like? Um, but that for me has been a very good mantra to follow. I'm sure that there's other ones that people have. They're very similar, but that was just mine that I wrote down, and I literally put it on like this printed out thing from Vistaprint in the header of my gym, so I can see it when I'm working out. And it's like, also speaks to me like, don't be lazy, take care of your body and stuff. So it's a little motivational quote there. But if I'm in a bit of a predicament, it's like, hey, on this decision, what is it going to be? What would 80-year-old me look back on and think that was the right decision? And there's no real wrong ones along the journey. I mean, you can always go back and, in my opinion, correct stuff or go back and start again, whatever that may look like. If there's failures along the way, it's only failure if you give up. But the 80-year-old thing is very resonant in my head. And it started off actually from years of, if I didn't make a sale in farming. Sorry, I'm grabbing Mike here for a minute, Randall.
That's all right.
I wasn't making a sale. I'd make a point as a young salesperson. I'd be like, hey, a lot of these gentlemen, there's the odd female farmer as well. And most of the time it's actually partnerships that are really making a successful farm there, husband and wife. Actually, I think I talked about it on that panel a little bit in terms of who you're really selling to. And it's really the family at the end of the day in those situations. That's why it's so tied to relationship-based decision-making. It affects an entire family, if not multiple families that are, living off and working on the farm. But the thing that I do is some of these, and like I said, more commonly older men, I'd ask them, be like, well, hey, is there anything that you change on your, business or personal trajectory? It's been great meeting you today. I know you're not going to buy this thing kind of deal, or whatever it is. Or if they bought it, I'd also ask them. It would just depend on the mood. But yeah, these guys would share these super insightful stories. I wish I'd written more of them down, but all that being said, filtering down to the end, common denominator was always stuff that they hadn't done. It was never like, hey, I wish I wouldn't have done that thing or whatever. It was always like, I wish I would have done this. Maybe it was that other piece of land. That's a common regret in farming all the time. Wish I would have been able to buy it or something. But it was more like trips, different life events. Wish I would have made it to this thing instead of working. Hard thing to balance. I'm sure you're worried like that too, in terms of having that equilibrium within that whole working the 7 days a week thing. Like, how do we balance that out? We'll chat a little bit more about that later on. But it was so interesting to hear them just talk about, it was always things that they hadn't done or hadn't made as much of a priority, and having that point of view from them consistently. I was like, okay, that's how the slogan came to be in the basement. It's kind of helped a little bit. Hopefully it is, stays as strong as I think it is in my own mind. It seems to be helpful so far, but we'll see. So yeah, anyways, that was my story.
I'll share this quick story.
Of course.
You reminded me of my father-in-law, who actually was a farmer. He grew up in the Beausejour area, and so he had land, and he had a couple hundred head of cattle, and he was brought up to really just focus on work. So he's highly disciplined individual. Anyway, fast forward quite a few years. Actually, let me go back a couple of years. During the pandemic, when international flights weren't a thing, I told my father-in-law, let's just go for a drive. Let's explore our own backyard, because we can't leave Canada anyway. Let's just go for a drive. And so we decided to point the car east and started driving towards Lake of the Woods. We didn't make it that far, but we just started driving. And so we found ourselves in the Beausejour area, or exiting the Beausejour area. And he's in the car and he says, Randall, you see that farm ahead? Yeah. The moment we passed that farm, this is the furthest east I've been. And I can't remember where we took him. For whatever reason, my mind's not going today. I'm forgetting the actual provincial or park, the national park that we landed at.
Yeah.
But he really enjoyed his day, and he says, "Oh, we were in the White Shelf. Forgive me."
Okay, I was thinking that was,
yeah. And he says to me, "What a beautiful day! I can't believe I waited 70 years to see this beauty." So little tidbits like that were firm reminders in the last 5 years that life is short, and you got to take a hold, get a grip of yourself, and just actually go for it. And frankly, Stephen, I'm not the most daring person. The thing I love about entrepreneurs is they go for it. Man, I see the stuff you're doing. I admire you. And maybe it's just imposter syndrome, but I didn't associate with myself with being that daring. And so in my mind, I've manifested this persona of what an entrepreneur is. And I just admire it. Like, this is a personality who's not afraid to go after what makes them happy. And so anyway, that's how I've glorified it in my mind.
Number one, sweet story. I appreciate you sharing that. That's definitely the same genre of guy I used to chat with or whatever, and it's like the exact same thing all the time. maybe I didn't, being in sometimes the same vehicle, not the exact same story, but same. That's an
Yeah.
amazing share, and I appreciate you saying that about the chase and the hunt and stuff, that I'm kind of pursuing. And stuff takes way longer than it looks. We'll just say that. I don't think that can be said enough. I speak with a lot of folks on the podcast, and then just even on my own little ventures, and some that have failed. And I don't want that to ever be thrown under the rug. Like, I have lost, I'll say, time and resources, if we want to talk about like the money investment in some of those things. But there was really big learnings, and and that's not always, we talk about like the freedom of time and stuff really being the ultimate goal. And although, as you're really committed to um, the grind, it seems like that's not the goal, but it's because you love what you do. So it just doesn't seem that way. But yeah, there's been some bumps, and there's always learning. There's always I would say a big learning once a year. Now
Yeah.
I've kind of averaged it out. I'm like, okay, well, this is just to be expected now. And I think that's why I handled the whole, we were talking before the episode with the furnace replacement so well, because I'm like, well, this is just, I have bigger highs and lows in my day, let alone having a big invoice come in for something you need. It's not even an option. So, meanwhile, you tell that to someone else outside of the entrepreneurial world, and I think that mindset, and it's like, oh my gosh, like, oh, you gotta be eating craft dinner,
Yeah.
and I will not do that just because health is so important. I won't go and sacrifice, with the fuel I'm putting in for some of the training I do. But yeah, it's certainly a risk tolerance thing, I think. And then your grit and determination to stay at it. I hear that time and time again from other folks. And I'm kind of experiencing that to some, degree, in terms of like, other companies that we're growing, and some of the stuff I'm involved in. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. Now we're
Yeah,
talking
of
about
course.
the daily schedule here. And we started off with jumping into talking about office space. And, although you're working 7 days a week, how do you prioritize the family life and your personal health within the dynamic of working, relatively speaking, 7 days a week? And I think I'd probably fall in the same kind of category. I try not to on Sundays. I get kind of burnt out by the time Sunday rolls around. And I'm like, I'm already planning for the next week, so I am still working, but it's like
Yeah.
it's like, okay, that week's over. We got to flip the page. We're, sending stuff off to the team. But how do you find that, that balance, or what could you share about your routine that you think is
Sure.
helpful for how you find peace within the
Two,
day and the grind?
two things come to mind. Number one is integration. And so I believe in work-life integration. And so even though I just said moments ago that, I
Yeah,
haven't taken a day off this year, believe me, that's not intended to sound like, look at me, I'm putting all this effort. No, the truth is my mind just doesn't know how to turn off very well. I'm always
yeah,
constantly thinking because I'm always
mm,
personally, I always find myself in this hamster wheel of what can I do to improve? What can I do to improve? And my mind is always spinning. And so I figure I can either fight that and fail, knowing who I am, or
right,
I can just look for pockets in my day where I can uh, uh, fit in my work in. And sometimes my work can just be as simple as, well, if I wanted to learn about this, if I wanted to improve my knowledge around developing a go-to-market strategy, harnessing new leads, or doing this in the operational sector, then I'll just fit in an audio book after my dinner before I, go back to the laptop. Or
right,
I'll just find little pockets. And so it's integration, looking for ways to squeeze in different activities that fuel my overall goals, but
yeah,
without feeling like I'm trapping myself in the office and just doing one thing for 8 hours, 10
interesting,
hours, or what have you. So that's number one.
yeah,
And the second one
yeah,
is actually consolidating or killing two birds with one stone. So like you, Stephen, I totally appreciate that you take care of your body because, talking about time control and wealth, creating wealth so that we have freedom and control of our time. I believe in that too.
yeah,
But what's the point of wealth if you don't have health? And so every single day,
100%,
I focus on lifting weights or going for long walks. Those are opportunities for me to also learn something. And so while I'm downstairs in my basement lifting weights or walking, I'm
yeah,
listening
yeah,
to a podcast, I'm listening to an audio book or what have you, two birds with one stone. But I find like
awesome.
by breaking things up like that, I'm able to accomplish more in my day without feeling like I'm literally trapped in the corner just working the entire time.
That's awesome. So basically what I'm hearing is saying you're doing supersets the whole day. No matter what it is, you have a couple of things, rocking and rolling, whether you're actually working out, maybe actually doing a superset, you have a podcast going on or audiobook.
Yeah.
And finding the cool little gaps in the day. I think we're wired similarly like that. It's often, or, phone calls, walking the dog, kind of thing, just fitting in, catching up with phone calls and stuff is something that I, have to do. And hopefully it gets a little warmer out. So that's a little bit more
Yeah.
enjoyable,
I'm looking forward
frankly.
to that.
Yeah, we need it
I
here
should
at
give
home.
a nod to my wife too. My wife is big on she sees things the other way and from a different lens. And so she's a bit more, I would say, regimented. I don't think rigid is the right word, but she's more controlled with how her day ought to be. And I actually
Right.
appreciate this. This is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
She is a mental health nurse, and so she helps keep me on track. And
Right.
she'll give me reminders that, what are you stressed about? Are you stressed? Are you anxious about something? Shouldn't you be turning the laptop off? It's 9 o'clock or it's 9:30. And
Right.
even though I may not be stressed about something, I think it's helpful to have somebody in my corner remind me about these things.
100%.
And I actually find that I need that, because if it wasn't for her, I would probably just keep working or thinking. And so I also recognize that's not healthy either. When
Yeah.
ultimately, like I said earlier, if I'm going after freedom of time and control, uh, I'm not actually doing a great job of controlling my own schedule.
Yeah. Very true. How do you turn off your brain? I have a hard time with this.
With a lot of difficulty and pain.
Okay, so it's it doesn't come naturally to you either. There's sometimes the mind is just going later at night. Like hopefully, I almost have to like personally plan like an event we went out. Well, even last night was kind of like a work dinner meeting thing, but at least it separated again being in a different space. I mean, there's a cost associated with going out for a nicer dinner and stuff, but it created a gap from being at the home office or even being at some of the office spaces that we work out of. For me, so I found it very relaxing, and I was kind of like, okay, cool, maybe do a sauna before bed, but then I'm tired at that
Yeah.
stage. So that's stuff that I've done. But other than that, I do find it sometimes tricky because you've then, post dinner, whatever, if you're at home, you're on the laptop, you're doing a little extra on the phone, right? We have these mini supercomputers with
Yeah.
us every step of the way. And it's awesome. You couldn't, now it feels weird. I don't think it'd be very difficult to live without that. But it's tough to unplug sometimes, especially if you are
Well,
pushing the limits. So
I tell you what does help. I just thought of this is turning the lights down low or having the right
oh
temperature
yeah.
with my lighting. And so
Hmm.
I try to block out any blue light or harsh computer light. And in every room of my home, I recognize that I've put in, I don't know what the right terminology is, but just there's a warm tone, lighting tone in every room of my house. And the my neighbors sometimes have told me, "Is anybody even home? Like I don't see any lights on," and that's on purpose. It helps me ease
Interesting.
into, even though I might still be thinking or on the laptop banging out
Right.
emails. I physiologically, I like to think that it's calming me down and prepping me to get to bed.
Interesting. Do you read before bed?
Oh, no, although I probably should. I'm a terrible reader.
What? How so? What kind of bad? What's the
I
habit?
I am really, really slow. I'm a
Oh,
really,
okay.
really slow reader. And I find that I actually get bored easily.
Hmm.
And
That's very
I find
relatable.
myself really struggling to get into the text or the story that I'm reading about.
Right.
And so when I'm consuming books, it's really audio books. So I'm bigger on the
Right. Okay.
reading, or
Well,
listening, I should say.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's okay. That's no. I've heard that be a thing, and I'm a bit of a slow read as well. Or I find I get so far in, and then I'm like 3 chapters, so to say. I can see where this is going already, and I'm kind of like, oh, well, I already kind of know, like I assume I know the rest of it, and it's always feels so empowering and good when you do finish the book eventually. But I probably have like 5 on the go right now, and they're all
Well,
about the same spot. It's like 3 chapters or about halfway through the book, and they're awesome. They're great books, and I've learned some lessons from them. But that second half of the book is a bit of a trickster. It's going to take a little longer to get there, but yeah.
what are you reading right now?
You know what? I just picked up one recently, top of mind, and then from okay, hold on. Let's go with the one I just got, which apparently was like very high in demand. I didn't realize I walked into Costco getting some dog food and some stuff that I get from there. And there was this Mel Robbins. Is that her name, right? Mel Robbins, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, Mel Robbins. Yeah,
Okay, I just know there's a couple Robbins. I don't want to get it wrong here, but so there's this new book that she put out called Let Them, and it's bright green. I totally bought the book based on cover and the fact that I see her shorts online, and I was just like, this book looks neat. It's like 23 bucks or something. I'm like, throw it in the cart. One of those auto Costco moves that you do, right? You're just
yeah,
sitting there, you're like, oh, I need this thing. So throw it in the cart, get it home. And then I think I even posted about it that night. I was in the sauna doing like a little bit of reading. Sometimes I do that. And someone's like, how did you get that book? And I didn't realize it was like, there was only like 5 on the table or something. And it was, I guess, like I think it's more, they have more out now. And it's wherever you can get them anywhere. I just kind of thing online. So shout out to, Mel Robbins
oh,
podcast
that's
for,
cool.
because she said something about it. So that's something I'm reading right now. And it's a lot of letting go of control is kind of my first takeaway with that one right now. I'm very enjoying that. I've kind of started to implement some things ahead of reading that. Not to say, hey, I had that figured out completely, but it's a good coaching tool right now for other things that are evolving on, in my personal life and professional life that I really enjoy. The other one is, Buy Back Your Time by this
Yeah.
Dan guy. I think he's Canadian, actually. He is Canadian. I think he's out in Kelowna, if I'm getting this right. I
Oh,
follow him
cool.
online too. And he was promoting this book, and it's about, handing stuff off kind of thing. I'll just do these top 2 book reviews kind of thing. The other ones, and there's a list that I got on the bottom of my bookshelf across from in my office here. I can see them. I can't remember all the names of them though, but those are the 2 ones that I'm going into right now. A lot of them are business books. Although I just picked up a book too from my buddy. I'll mention the third one. I haven't started it yet. My buddy Jay Hall, locally here. I don't know if you know him at all.
Ooh,
Some
yeah,
people on the
yeah,
thing.
yeah. I'm
He
connected with
just
him.
he just released a book and he's getting into being like an author and stuff. We had a really cool chat. He actually has like a sweet podcast set up too. It's a lot about positive moments, but his writing anyways is more fictional in nature. I mean, the story that he wrote is based on his own personal relationship with other stuff. There's like a bonus book and stuff. So that's what I'm currently diving into. But yeah, Mel,
Sweet.
to Let Them, and some business books. And but yeah, at different times I have to take breaks though too, because some of them do seem repetitive, and then it's like I'm just reading the same thing, like go out, hustle, go get it. And then
Yeah,
I need that break to be like, hey, like let it be impactful enough so I will actually go and make a change. Or if I've slipped a little bit, hopefully bring me back up to that thing. So that's what I'm reading right now.
I sometimes think how it's a good reminder that if I'm going through a book or listening to a book and I feel like, hey, I'm not really getting anything out of this, I like to tell myself, well, that's because you know it all, Randall, which is
Thanks.
actually not the case.
Yeah, I
Um,
was just gonna
but
say, like, personally, I've done that too. I'm like, well, I already know this, and then I'm like,
yeah,
dude, bullshit. Keep reading. There's
good
there's
reminder,
another
right?
point. Yeah, you don't know it all. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
that's good. How about yourself? What do you listen to right now, or kind of
Dub-
reading?
Uh,
Listen, reading.
Double Double,
What's
I
that all
think is
about?
what it was called. Double Double by
Mhm.
Cameron Harold.
Okay.
Wonderful entrepreneur. He, I'm going to butcher his life story, so I'll try to keep this short. He actually served as a second in command as a COO to many founders, even though he has a history of being an entrepreneur himself and grew that company, just went bananas.
Yeah.
That company has become a household name, 1-800 Junk. And
Oh,
so
cool.
highly decorated individual.
Yeah, yeah.
And so because of my line of work as a fractional COO, he teaches everything he's learned in his career. And so Double Double is what I'm listening to right now. Actually, this is my second
Cool.
time listening to it. I just love it that much.
Oh, that's fun. Hmm.
Yeah, you've done
Yeah, I
that.
gotta. Yeah, I have totally. There's a couple books, and there's one that comes to mind. Yeah, I'm not gonna mention it, but it's something that I've been thinking, like, you know what, I gotta go back and read that one again. And yeah, there's a few that cycle around like that. And I've had some great trainings working in the corporate side. Shout out to, having a job again. Where I didn't, you don't realize how much these companies are really investing in you in terms of like the training and stuff until you're out of it and you have to
Yeah,
pay for your own training. And then you realize
absolutely.
how beneficial that really was to your, getting you going every day. But it's yeah, there's a couple like that for sure that are good. And you know what, Randall? Okay, let's chat a little about what's going on today. That was a good, you mentioned the CEO thing. I know what you're up to, but let's let's start off with the name of the company. How did that come to be? And then let's segue into what you're doing now, how you're helping people out a little bit.
Yeah. My company name is Pemorations, and I have a partner. His name is Brian. He's based out of Denver. And I asked him questions like, how did we land on this name Pemorations? Because full disclosure, he actually got started a few months before I did. And
Yeah.
we decided to partner a few months after he did get started. And I asked him a similar question. Tell me, is there a story behind Pemorations? And it's
Yeah.
this wonderful story. He says it's a combination of two words, my love for operations and my daughter's name, Pema. And what led
Awesome.
us to have this conversation is as we're talking about this partnership,
Yeah.
he asks me, well, if we're going to partner, do you want to change the name? Do you want to come up with a name together? And that's why I asked the question, well, it depends. Tell me if there's a backstory. But after he
Yeah.
told me the story, I said, there's no way I'm going to ask you to change the name. And frankly, I like that there's a story. I like that there's a personal hook. And so I
Right.
didn't want to change the name. So that's the name of our company, Pemorations. But what we do, the service or product that we provide to the marketplace, we're fractional COOs, which is very broad. I would dare say that the term fractional and the idea of fractional is been more widely adopted in the US. And I think it's
Mhm.
continuing to grow here in Canada. And I know that because when I explain this, what I do to my friends and family, there's a big question mark in their
Right.
eyes. And so let me
Yep.
be extremely clear. Think of me
Love this.
as a part-time COO for hire,
Right.
hired by multiple companies at the same time. And
Awesome.
actually, you made me think about this when you and I were talking about, how we never turn our minds off. Honest to God, a couple of days ago, I woke up in the middle of the night, must have been 2 or 3, and I
Yeah.
immediately went into the problem statement of our company, as in, what is the
Interesting.
problem that we solve? And so I
Yeah. Yeah.
thought, leading up to this recording right now, I thought I'm going to bring this problem statement because I kept thinking about it. And I'm going to use this opportunity to be really, really clear about what I do. So humor me here. I'm going to read my problem statement. It's going to sound
Yeah.
like I'm reading,
100%.
but that's on purpose.
No.
Okay.
No.
It's a
Yeah.
bit lengthy, but I want to be really clear. So here's my
Yeah.
problem statement. We liberate overwhelmed founders of professional services firms from operational bottlenecks that stifle growth and keep founders trapped in the daily grind of managing people, processes, and client work. How do we solve the problem? By implementing scalable systems and a culture of strategic execution, we enable the founder to then step back, scale up, and transform a founder reliant business into a self sustaining company. I'm reading. The short of it is I solve the
Yeah.
bottleneck.
Yeah. Interesting. I love
Does
that.
that
What
resonate with you?
100? Wow. Yeah, very much so. We're always trying to improve processes, and sometimes we could totally use an extra set of hands, for something like that as kind of the main person. I mean, my team is amazing. We
Yep.
are working together on things, but a lot of the time on bigger decision, the weight falls on me. It does not fall on the team. They're not responsible for that, and that's good. So we're all working hard on things, but making certain decisions and going through meetings and stuff. I mean, well, we also do kind of fractional stuff, but on the marketing
Yep.
side. So I totally understand that end of it. But then in terms of helping, yeah, figure out those bottlenecks, like what is the right thing to do? What things should we automate, or what, I just did a bit on CRMs the other day. I think it's a common thing
Nice.
that, that might be one of the things that you guys end up analyzing with folks. And anyone who doesn't know that, customer relationship management tool, that alone has solved a lot of things for us. But after then you get using it well, we we have to make improvements off that in terms of how we automate that, and like making sure that that big data and information that we have on there is actually useful for us and that everyone is using it. And I remember being on the other side of this years ago as a rep and being like, you got to update your CRM, whatever. And you're kind of like, oh, whatever, I'll do it later. And I actually grew to really enjoy that process. It's part of the reason that we like chatting about it. And then there's integrations with marketing in that aspect. But nonetheless, yes, we totally would fall in the category of needing help in the service side. Absolutely. And a lot of the companies we chat with fall in the same category of needing help. So I think what you guys are offering is a fantastic service. I think it takes maybe immense pain because some people get stubborn, want to just keep doing it themselves.
Yeah.
um, for maybe too long. I know we try to get ahead of that, either add more folks onto the team in specific areas if we're growing ourselves, or if it's a training, or if it is bringing someone in to help with our. I'm just speaking from our own experience, but I think some folks need to practice in some regard letting go. I was just talking with a friend the other day, story time again here, out on the East Coast. They run a pretty successful business, the ranching and other stuff, but they just can't let go of the control. And I'm sure you come across all the time. Like they just like don't want to let anyone in. And I can so clearly see I'm not even the one to help them, but they just need someone else to give them some advice there.
And the funny thing
So
is, even I find myself getting sucked into this trap. It's a very
right,
real thing. It's a very common thing. Like it's a very natural thing, I should say. And
right,
I think, earlier on when I was assessing this problem, I was even wondering myself, does this equate to a deficiency or a lack of some sort of capability by way of the founder? Where I've landed is no. I just think this is a very natural thing, right? Like if you think about the trigger events that led to a growing professional services firm, that founder woke up one day and realized, there is a gap in the marketplace, and I could probably solve that via a product or service. So I'm going to go into business. And so
right.
if you look at the origin story, that person is actually just wanting to add value to the marketplace, but they do a good job. They build up a list of clientele. They end up having to hire some staff members because they get busy. But then there comes this invisible ceiling where their next wake up call is, oh,
Right.
now I got to be good at operations, at HR. I have to be a good manager, a leader. I have to learn payroll. Like
Yeah.
no one teaches this stuff, right? And so it's very, very natural. And so, back to our story sharing earlier, where what was my trigger point to do what I'm doing now? When I assessed what I wanted my back half of life to look like, I made a commitment to myself and to my partner that I'm gonna commit my time to actually making an impact. And this uh, operations, leadership, shaping culture, that just happens to be a skill set that I thought maybe I can use this for good. And so here we are.
That's awesome. Do you write down these goals? Or how do you track them and stuff in terms of like goal setting from your end of things?
Yeah. Are you asking for my personal business or with work with
Oh,
clients?
oh, I guess more for your business internally, I guess we'll say, like, and even for your personal, like the conversation you're kind of sharing there, is it stuff
Yeah.
that you've written down and kind of journaled in a way? I know that it's kind of more talked about a little bit, but
I recognize that my question back to you was actually a moot point because the answer is yes to both.
yeah,
I do write down goals for myself, for our business, and for our clients. Um, I believe in that because what gets measured gets managed, or what gets measured gets improved.
right, yeah,
And frankly, even on a personal level, I'm just the type of guy who thinks that I should not be the same person I was 5 years ago. The only
mm,
way for me to
yeah,
actually take action is for me to write, and even better than writing it down is writing and visualizing it. And so having like a big personal vision board where you want to live, what you want your life to be like, da 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 da. I think that's very important. It's part of the journey.
awesome. No, I think it is incredibly important, right? That's just yeah, visualize it. I mean, manifesting is a huge part of this whole thing. um, on the journey. I think that's why, we are talking about a little bit of like travel from before and why that's so important. It's good to go see how other people live and those energies in different cities, parts of different countries, understanding that, yeah, how those people live ultimately. And then hopefully you can bring some of that stuff back on the personal side into business, or you get ideas about business when you're there, frankly.
Yeah.
Um, but it's good to have other exposure and understand um, different cultures and folks that way. So yeah, every time I come back from something travel wise, it's like other light bulbs going off I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
always super impactful. So yeah,
I'm big on um, I'm big on visualization, and I'm a kinesthetic communicator. I'm a kinesthetic learner, and
interesting.
one of the things that I want to achieve, me and my wife, is to actually move to the Canadian Rockies. And so Canmore, Alberta is where we want to call home. We want to move as early as this time next year or next summer. And a decision like that doesn't just happen overnight. It happens by speaking about it, writing down goals, and for me, being a visual person or a kinesthetic learner, one of the habits I've fallen into is 3 to 4 times a week how I wind down my night. Actually, this is actually how I wind down and prepare for sleep.
I like it.
I find myself in the living room and I actually watch videos, those walking videos of people in cam or just, I don't know if you've seen this genre of YouTube videos. Yeah, just a camera and they just walk.
Yep.
And for me, that's very calming.
So cool.
It's very relaxing. And so it calms me down, prepares me for sleep, but also helps me see what my future is going to look like.
That's cool. Yep. I enjoy that. That's really cool. I mean, I see other people make vision boards and different things like that. And there's no, I haven't done that yet. It's not like a knock. I think those are very impactful. I definitely rock a list of things I want to do before I'm 80 relative to that comment I made before. So I have a list form of that stuff, some things that I want to accomplish. And we're making great strides, me, myself, and I on that one. So it's cool to hear that you also visualize that and like practice weekly, kind of like that future, putting yourself in that position.
Well, I'll give you this in case some of the listeners might not be like me. Maybe not, because not everybody wants to see videos as to manifest their dreams or their goals. But my mentor and friend had taught me many years ago. It's all about the 5 F's. I hope I don't butcher this: faith, family, friends, finance, and fitness. And what he and another individual actually encouraged me to do is, open up, get a piece of paper and write down what are your goals in each of those buckets and put a timeline to it. And I actually just revisited that not too long ago as I was transitioning to this journey. And every couple of years, you have to trim it down, you have to change it, you have to adjust it because we change as people. Man, my goals 20 years ago was like, I want to have a Koenigsegg CCX supercar. It's like, well, that means nothing to me now.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. And I've heard this spoke about on other things online about just over time, the pattern through success where less of it falls on things and more on experiences. I think that's definitely a pattern I fall into there for sure. There's interesting
experiences and impact.
Yeah.
That's where my mind's at now.
Yeah. Randall, we gotta close it off. We've been yakking for too long in a great way. There's we'll include the links below, but just to say them out loud, what's the best way to get in touch with you or your company if someone needs help or they just want to chat and want to be your pal? How do they follow your story online? I know that you're very active on like LinkedIn. It's just likely your name on there, but are there other social media or websites that they can go to and check out?
No, that's the one. I would say LinkedIn, Randell Mauricio, RANDELL MAURICIO. But certainly pemorations.com is another way to learn more a bit about me. But I'm an open book. You probably sense that in this recording.
An open audio book, some would say. Yeah. So that's
we nailed it.
Yeah, we'll see if anyone ever hears that at the end of the episode. Someone will. So it's been awesome.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. We'll chat soon.